For what stigma means to me, I would say shame.
Cautious, simply cautious.
Reluctance.
What is stigma? Stigma is a negative, a pejorative belief that people have, often an irrational, often a prejudiced belief. And how does it affect people? It affects people. If people think that you've got something negative about you, you're typically ostracized. It keeps you away from people. It can actually go deeper, sort of, if it's there for a long time, you can actually start thinking that yourself, about yourself.
How does stigma towards mental illness affect my life? There was always the anxiety of what would someone think and what would someone do. So I think that, once again, before I became more of an advocate and being out there and willing to say and describe the things that I'm challenged with, I was just very, very cautious and apprehensive.
It definitely affects my relationships with my family, growing up with such a stigma around mental illness. It affects me just getting close to people. I'm so scared to let down the walls with friends and just letting them know what's going on with me. In the long run, that ends up being detrimental because I don't reach out to people in my time of need.
If we think about stigma associated with mental illness, stigma's been there with mental illness, with other types of disorders for centuries. You can go back to the 1600s and the Salem witch trials. And what was that about? These were probably people who had some type of psychiatric illness, and they attributed it to these people being infested with the devil. And we know what happened to those people. Less than a century ago, a similar type of belief was there for epilepsy, that clearly you were infused with the devil, and that's what that's why you had epilepsy. And it wasn't too long ago that there was stigma, that there was prejudice. People were shamed for having HIV disease, that it was related to your lifestyle, and that's what caused it. So judgments have gone on a long time, and it certainly goes on with mental illness today as well.
In everyday life, when we see the notion of people with mental illness would be the ones that stand out more, who don't have a active goal in their health, who don't take the medication, who don't go seek therapy, who don't have the right amount of sleep, who don't get the right amount of food, are the ones who more stand out in society rather than the ones who are doing what they should, and they're at least more seen as accepted in society in a way.
I think some of the stigma that I'm going to say a lot of millennials face is caused by people overusing words and using them in the wrong context.
All mental health problems, the prognosis is excellent. 80% of people can expect very, very significant recovery, if not improvement, if not full recovery. 50% of people don't even go for treatment. And we suspect a fair number of those people who don't go for treatment, it's because of stigma. They know there is something wrong with their mental health, but they don't want to look at it, or they have a fear or concern what others might say to them if they had a mental health problem.
I'm afraid who to tell and what to tell. And I did have a situation where I did tell one of my bosses, and his first question was, "What are your triggers?" And it just felt so inappropriate and felt so personal, and that's not something that you need to ask, and something that you should ask to somebody that you seem to not know anything about.
The first time I tried to commit suicide, I had a nurse come up to me to do something with my IV, and she said, "How could you try and kill yourself? You're so pretty." And I thought to myself, how does that have to do with anything going on in my brain right now? That stigma follows people around everywhere in our society. People think that to be depressed you have to have something wrong with your life, but you can't help the way the chemistry works in your body.
I was talking to someone I had just met, and we were kind of just talking about our lives, sharing about different things, and when I started talking about openly the mental health challenges I have, the instant reaction that she had was simply, "You don't look like someone who has bipolar." So I don't know if there's a better example of stigma than that you have to look a certain way to be struggling with your mental health challenges.
Well, what does stigma do to deter positive outcomes? As I have said, that 50% of people with mental health problems, if you go knock on 100 doors and ask a whole bunch of questions to people, you'll find that 50 of them with mental health problems have never seen a mental health professional, have never seen a doctor of any kind for an evaluation. And a sizable proportion of those are because of their fear of that this might be something that can't be helped when indeed it's the opposite, or their fear of what others might think about them, how they might be judged if they had a mental health problem.
I think stigma is created a lot from a lack of knowledge and ignorance.
When those preconceived ideas are negative or not in line with your own positive thought patterns or what you're striving to do within your own health, that can start to scare you away from getting help and getting the things that you need to be able to be healthy.
When I'm not feeling well and I don't want to go to school, I don't want to be seen as a depressed or upset or whatever, so that makes me not want to go even more and adds to the stress of it for sure.
People who have bipolar, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder aren't people to fear, they're people to understand.
Mental illness is an illness, and it needs to be taken as seriously as that.